We've talked about Cosmic Eclipse stuff before, but I want to talk a little bit about like what I think, what we think is going to be meta, what cards we think are going to impact the game as we know it. Lily's question specifically was about Great Catcher. So let's have a little bit of a talk about Great Catcher. How do we think Great Catcher will impact decks? How do we think Great Catcher will impact the formats coming up in the next month or so? So I want to hear your opinions in the chat. Me personally, I think that some decks may still play Custom Catcher. The ability to gust up and KO non-GX Pokemon is very strong. For instance, against Malamar, Great Catcher does almost nothing, right? And Malamar is a top-tier deck. I mean, it keeps showing up at these events. I'd say Malamar is a deck that is difficult to play, super well. So, there are a few players who have really asserted themselves as being like really top-tier Malamar players, and I think that Michael Catrone finishing in the top, I think 32 back-to-back regionals. I mean, top 8'd Atlantic City and then top 32'd this regionals with Malamar. Obviously, a very serious Malamar player. The Shamanskys as well, showing themselves to be very phenomenal Malamar players as well. With Alex Shemansky finishing in the top 32, I believe, of this past regional. He was at least in day 2 and has been really tearing it up at Cups lately with Malamar. So, Great Catcher does not go around Malamar, which is like, or Giratina's with spell tags. It doesn't help you in that matchup. It doesn't help you do things like gust up Vulpix and, Natalie corrected me. Yes, Catrone did not finish in the top 32, but back-to-back day 2s with Malamar. It does not help you do things like gust up Vulpix against Reshiram decks, right, to try and take out their Ninetales, which is also a very good option. I got some players in the chat saying that Pikarom may still play Custom Catchers, and that could be true. I mean, Pikarom could still play some Custom Catchers. It might play a split of Custom Catchers and a Great Catcher or 2, because being able to gust up non-GX Pokemon is really good in Pikarom. Obviously, being able to finish off, a GX on the bench, also phenomenal. So it may end up playing a split if it can afford the room. Got Grammar Time in the chat saying that you will play Great Catcher in Malamar, though, and that I 100% agree with. I think non-GX decks get much stronger with Great Catcher, being able to target down, pull up, and knock out big tag team GX and regular GX threats on the bench to finish them off. I think Malamar will love Great Catcher as a card. I mean, you get to discard 2 cards from your hand. That's not even a bad thing for a Malamar deck, discarding 2 cards. They don't mind that at all. So I think the Great Catcher will be a shoe-in for non-GX decks. GX decks will accommodate for it as well and play at least a copy. I think Pikarom can afford to just play like 1 or 2 of them because you can Vulcaner for it. So I think that's a big deal. Breloom Onion, good point, says Pidgey will love Great Catcher as well. Yes, stall decks will also love Great Catcher, because then instead of having to play 3 Custom Catchers and put together 2 to bring out a Pokemon to stall, I mean, it could just play 2 Great Catchers. Again, though, if a Pidgey deck is trying to stall out a deck like Malamar, it might need the triple Custom Catchers to continue to drag up Malamars and things like that to the active position, because not every deck is going to have Pokemon GX. So maybe Pidgey plays 1 copy of Great Catcher, but still plays some Custom Catchers, because it's going to need to bring out some non-GX threats. So really good question there from Lily, and I think that Great Catcher will be huge. It's going to be in a lot of decks, and I don't think it's going to completely replace Custom Catcher at all, because some decks will still need to bring up those non-GX Pokemon, but a great option for GX decks. As one last thing, I think that Mewtwo gets even stronger with Great Catcher in the deck. I mean, so let's talk about Mewtwo a little bit. Mewtwo, I think right now is indisputably the best deck in format. It won back-to-back regionals. Huge impact on the game, huge impact on the meta, and that deck is just such a bully to play against. Being able to deal 300 damage for just 4 energy is absolutely groundbreaking. So Mewtwo gets even stronger with Great Catcher. You get to discard 2 cards from your hand. Mewtwo loves that. Mewtwo can discard 2 Pokemon from its hand in order to put them into the discard pile and copy those attacks with Mewtwo and Mew Tag Team GX. Also, a lot of times when you're playing against Mewtwo, one of the things that you are crossing your fingers for is that they don't get the double custom catcher on your important GX to go Charizard GX, 300 damage, custom catcher, take out your guy. Especially if you're playing Pikarom. Because a lot of times, like, if you're going second with Pikarom, this is how it goes. Mewtwo, they'll get a turn 1 welder attached to their Mewtwo, turn 1 going first because they always get it. And then you're going second, and you're like, oh, well, I'm going to put a lightning energy on my Pikarom and cross my fingers and hope for the best. If Mewtwo only has to find 1 welder between turn 1 and turn 2, then Great Catcher up your only Pikarom with the lightning energy on it and deal 300 damage to it, the game is pretty much over. So I think that is wild. Does anybody know in the chat, when is the turn 1 supporter rule coming into effect? That's something that is also a big deal because, Great Catcher does make going first a much bigger deal because you can get set up on the first turn and then going second, you'll be able to easily Great Catcher, bring out a big target on your opponent's bench and just smack into it. And people are saying Sword and Shield base set. I think that's probably the right answer for that. So we are going to have at least one more format here without the turn 1 rule coming into effect, meaning that Mewtwo welder decks are going to be able to use Great Catcher on turn 2 to do a consistent turn 2 300 damage to whatever target that they want on the bench potentially. So that's pretty crazy. All right. Any other questions in the chat? What cards do we want to talk about next? I saw Andrew Dankus saying that Jigglypuff and Megalopunny GX is going to be absolutely busted. So let me hear your thoughts on Megalopunny and Jigglypuff GX. This card has got an attack Jumping Balloon. Does 60 plus damage. This attack does 60 more damage for each of your opponent's Pokemon EX and GX. So if your opponent has 2 GXs in play, it does a cool 180 damage. If they have 3 Pokemon GX in play or EX, it's doing what, 260? What, 180? 240. Right, math is hard. All right, we're doing 240 damage for 3 Pokemon GX. So you can one-hit KO a Pikarom if they have 3 GX in play. A lot of times Pikarom is going to have 3 GXs in play because they're going to have at least a Pikarom, a Dedenne, and a Raichu. Those are the 3. So that is pretty rough. A lot of players are saying that this card will be very good in Mewtwo decks. Unfortunately, right? You could play it in Mewtwo. You could also play it in Pikarom. You could easily tag switch to this and get a quick knockout on an opposing Pikarom as well, and a Pikarom mirror, something like that. You can knock out a Pikarom easily without needing any sort of electro powers and things like that. Another big thing that you could do with this, you could easily smack into a Mewtwo for quite a bit. If you look at a Mewtwo and Mew's board position, it's usually 2 Dedenne, 2 Mewtwo Mews. That's 4 Pokemon GX. Mewtwo and Mew almost always has 4 Pokemon GX in play, especially this list that Danny just won the regionals with, the list that Azul won the regionals with. Thank you so much, Zach Pra, for those 200 bits. Appreciate all the love, Zach. Awesome stuff, my dude. And I think this card is also going to be good against Mewtwo and Mew. You're dealing 300 damage if they have 4 Pokemon GX in play. So Mewtwo and Mew almost always has 4 Pokemon GX in play once they get their board position set up. If they do not have 4 Pokemon GX in play, then they're not really setting up well, right? Because they need to have 2 Mewtwo Mews, and the draw engine is Dedenne based. So by like turn 2 or 3, they're going to have that many Pokemon GX in play. So I think that Mega Lopunny might start to feel like the new Mewtwo Wars, right? Where you're just like slinging this 3 energy attack back and forth, taking huge one-hit knockouts. And it's going to be interesting to see what decks accommodate for this card, what decks, and how matches get played as far as limiting your bench as to having less Pokemon GX. Because the more Pokemon GX you have in play, the more this thing does. I think Puff Smasher GX is not really the attack everybody's talking about on this card. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now asleep. If this Pokemon has at least 4 extra energy attached to it, this attack does 200 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon, so you need 5 energy. You can sleep the active, 5 energy, to snipe 200 to the bench. It's not bad, for sure. And Riley says the best way to power up a Lopunny is with Welder. Right. So you could play this card even in Reshiram, to be honest. I think that it could find a home in Reshiram, it can find a home in Mewbox, and it can find a home in Pikarom. I think all 3 of those decks can easily accommodate for Mega Lopunny and Jigglypuff. So, very, very cool. We got Pedro in the chat saying it's like the new Salamence EX. What's hilarious is that Salamence EX was not even good. Nice comparison there, Pedro, for those of you guys that don't know. Salamence, fake Pokemon fan. Oh, we got it. Yeah, Salamence EX. I wanted to misspell it. Salamence EX, yes, had this attack. Beastly Fang. This attack does 50 more damage for each of your opponent's Pokemon EX. This card was really hyped when it was coming out, and it was kind of okay. Volcanion decks played it as a tech sometimes to kind of get surprise knockouts on things, but it ended up being a little bit overhyped. It's not a bad card, but it did end up being a little bit overhyped for its time. And Mega Lopunny does have some pretty close comparisons there. All right, I also heard some people wanting to talk about Mimikyu, so let me know. I'll talk about Mimikyu a little bit, and then if you've got any other cards that you want to go over, let me know in the chat, but we will talk about Mimikyu as soon as I find those psychic Pokemon. There they are. All right. The new busted Mimikyu. I also heard someone wants to talk about Oricorio. We'll talk about that as well since they're both right here. Mimikyu. Wow, we got tons of Mimikyu cards. The Pokemon Company loves Mimikyu apparently. And the good one has got this wonderful... All right, Volcarona. We'll put Volcarona on the list. This wonderful artwork. Check this dude out. Little clay Mimikyu figurine here just on the cute little sidewalk. I mean, what an adorable card. I love the Pokemon cards that are photographs. It's one of my favorite things because I'm a photographer, right? I'm not a very good illustrator. I can't draw very well. But this to me is very neat. Like, I could imagine myself trying to create a Pokemon card with a photograph as a picture, and I think that this one is very well done. So beautiful artwork there. The ability is what's got everybody talking. As long as this Pokemon is in play, each player's Pokemon GX with damage counters on it has no abilities. Very strong. We got Pedro in the chat saying Mimikyu is busted in stall decks with Shrine. No Zeraora, GX, etc. I think that Mimikyu is good in a lot of decks. It's good in Shrine decks, obviously, because Shrine, you just tick damage onto all your opponent's Pokemon GX, and then you lock it up with Mimikyu. It should theoretically be very strong against Pikarom, because you can just tick damage on their Zeraora, put Mimikyu into play, and then you shut off their Thunderclap Zone ability. Should be very good against Mewtwo decks as well, because you just tick Shrine, and then all of a sudden Mewtwo can't attack. It should also be good against Jirachi GX. If you're playing a Malamar deck and you want to turn off their Jirachi GX, which is preventing weakness from Psychic Pokemon, you can just put a Shrine down, tick damage onto everything, And then Mewtwo and Mews are getting hit for Psychic Weakness. The Mewtwo and Mews can't attack because they can't use their Perfection ability. This card is very, very good, and it should be very good against Mewtwo decks. Now, I was just talking about how good I think Mewtwo decks are going to be next format and how many new tools that they have available to them. So I think that in order to combat cards like Mimikyu, I think Mewtwo is going to have to play at least a few Stealthy Hoods in the deck. Stealthy Hood will get cards like Jirachi GX and Mewtwo to be able to play around Mimikyu. I think Stealthy Hood is going to prove itself to be just a mainstay card in a lot of decks, not only to play around the disruption factor of this Mimikyu, but also it's just good against things like avoiding Giratina pings. It's very good against being gusted up from the Ninetales from Team Up. There's a lot of different abilities that you're stopping now. If people decide they want to play Volcarona GX, right? Volcarona GX has an ability that allows you to snipe 2 damage counters onto a Pokemon. Stealthy Hood can prevent that as well. So I think Stealthy Hood is going to be the name of the game for anybody trying to play around this Mimikyu card. So we're going to see a lot of... Got Kevin with the Twitch Prime sub. Yo, thanks, Kevin. That's awesome. So Mimikyu, insanely busted card. Thanks for that sub, Kevin. And I think that this is going to be in a lot of non-GX decks. It's going to be in a lot of stall decks. And then we're also going to see a lot of Stealthy Hood action to combat that card. Oricorio GX. I think this card is absolutely nutter butters. I think this thing's amazing. Dedicated dance once during your turn before you attack. If one of your Pokemon was knocked out during your opponent's last turn, you may draw 3 cards, and you can't do it more than once. Very strong card. You can search it out with Mysterious Treasure, which is awesome. Just has more searchable options. Yo, thanks, MCU Collector. I appreciate the love, man. I think that this card's Mysterious Treasure searchable. We know how powerful of a card Reset Stamp is, right? Reset Stamp was in every single top 8 deck this past weekend at the Knoxville Regional Championships. Reset Stamp is a game-breaking card. If you can have an Oricorio on your bench, I think that it is just that nice extra protection against Reset Stamp. One of the things that I also really like about it is that I think this card ports very well into expanded format. So in expanded format, we have a Rangaroo. A lot of decks will play a Rangaroo as an instruct, for its instructability to fill the hand to 3. I think that being able to just draw 3 after a Pokemon is knocked out is also very good, and some decks will like that better than the resource management, or not resource management, instruct, right, a Rangaroo. So I think that this card could be very good and expanded. It helps you play around. It helps you play around N, right? N and Reset Stamp in expanded formats. And I think that it could play well in some non-GX decks as well. It could play well in decks like Night March. It could play well in decks like Vespa Queen, right? Decks that are getting things knocked out every single turn. I feel like this card could be good in. It is definitely great catcher bait in standard format. We got Grammar Time saying that in the chat. But a lot of times I think, like, if your opponent takes a turn to knock out a GX on your bench that isn't actively a threat, right? So we're talking about they take a time to gust up and KO a Dedenne. If they take a time to gust up and KO a Pokemon like Oricorio, they're not dealing with the tag team threats, right? They're not dealing with the Pikarom. They're not dealing with the Raichu and Alolan Raichu. They're not dealing with the, the Mewtwo and Mew tag team GX. So I think a lot of times the Oricorio is going to go unpunished because it's going to be like Dedenne. I mean, yeah, we already got Dedennes on our bench, and Dedenne has less hit points than the Oricorio. So, yeah, I'm not terribly concerned about it being a liability on the bench. Saw some questions about the tag team supporters. We could talk about those a little bit as well. And we also have the Braixen and Charizard. Let's take a little pit stop here real quick and talk about the fact that we got a water Sneasel. Ice, I should say, but, water-type Sneasel, water-type Weavile. Love it. Love it, love it. I think this artwork on the Sneasel, one of my favorite Sneasel artworks in the modern era. I love the old Sneasels, Sneasel EX, Sneasel from Neo. I really love the old Sneasel artworks that they've printed, but Rocket Sneasel EX. But lately, I haven't been super into the Sneasel artworks. I think the Sneasel artwork is absolutely phenomenal, and this Weavile artwork is super cool as well. Gotta love that. And then let's talk a little bit about Braixen and Charizard as well as Volcarona while we're up here in the fire types. We could talk about that a little bit. So I've heard a lot of mixed reviews about Braixen and Charizard GX. Let me hear your guys' thoughts. What do you guys think about Braixen and Charizard GX? Is it going to be this card that we see play in Abilities Art? Is this a card that we're going to see in Mewtwo and Mew tag team decks? Or is the card overrated and not that good? For those of you who don't know, it's got an attack Shiny Flare, 180 damage for 3 fire and a colorless. You may search your deck for up to 3 cards and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. We've got Connor saying he's swapping out Reshiram for this card in Mew Box. It seems insane, right? You do 180 damage. You get to also basically play a Steven's Resolve in the same turn. You get to deal 180 and stack your hand with 3 cards. You can easily stack the game-winning 3 cards into your deck, be it custom catchers, welders, fire energy, anything that you need to progress your game state next turn. I think this card seems like it'll be very good in Mew Box because then you don't actually have to just have the actual Charizard and Braixen GX. You can pivot from Shiny Flare into another attack next turn, which is incredibly powerful. I think that being able to do Shiny Flare into potentially a cross division or something like that, you can ensure yourself the cards that you need to pull off game. So I really do like Shiny Flare's attack. I think it's very good. The complaints that I've heard about this card is that it'll just get reset stamped away, and then you're only dealing 180 damage. So that's fair, but I mean, being able to stack your hand is just absolutely incredible. So I think that just because it could get reset stamped doesn't mean that it's a bad attack. Riley in the chat says the amount of times you have 4 energy and are just using a luxury attack for 180 is relatively low. I think that's fair as well. A lot of times, more often than not, you'll be using a 3 energy attack with Mewtwo, and you're probably trying to Turbo Strike, or you're probably trying to Tag Purge. Those are like the 2 early attacks you're using with the Mew Box deck. You're not always going to be having the luxury of the 4th energy and then stacking your hand, which could just get reset stamped. I do think that the GX attack is pretty good as well. Crimson Flame Pillar GX, attach 5 basic energy cards from your discard pile to your Pokemon in any way you like. If this Pokemon has at least 1 extra energy attached to it, your opponent's active Pokemon is burned and confused. So what's interesting is you could use that in Mew Box as well. It's basically a juiced up Nitro tank, right? You could use that against maybe a Pidgeotto deck or something like that. I mean, usually against Pidgeotto, you're pretty good trying to just Turbo Strike over and over again and make sure that you have enough stadiums to combat their power plants. But you could use Crimson Flame Pillar to get some energy back against a Pidgeotto deck if you wanted to. So, interesting card. I think it's got potential, but there are just so many good fire cards right now that are printed. I mean, so many incredible fire cards, and there's going to be a lot of competition for space in the Mewtwo and Mew decks. I do think that this card is better in Mewtwo and Mew than it would be in a deck like Reshiram. So that's my thoughts on those. We do have the Flareon as well, which is pretty neat. It's got an ability. I love the artwork on this thing. The cityscape is absolutely phenomenal. The attacks of your Pokemon GX that evolve from Eevee do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. You can't apply more than 1 power tier ability at a time. So you can juice up your Eeveelution's damage output by 30. That's pretty cool. Maybe I mean, I'm thinking like, what are the applications of this? I mean, maybe a Flareon deck and expanded, but at that point you're, using 2 Pokemon to give you plus 30 damage, so you might as well just have those 2 Pokemon in the discard pile. I feel like, and then you're also taking up like a bench spot, or not a bench spot, but a bench spot, and then also a Pokemon in your deck named Flareon that can't be another Flareon. So there's that. You also could. Oh no, it's Pokemon GX that evolved from Flareon. All right, so yeah, I'm tripping. You can't even do that because you can't juice up non-GX evolution. So it's only Pokemon GX. That's basically Sylveon, Vaporeon GX, Flareon GX, and Jolteon Gx, and Glaceon Gx. I do think that Glaceon Gx is a card that I keep thinking about in standard format. I'm like, wow, a Pokemon GX that turns off all Pokemon GX's abilities. That would be so good, right? But then next format, people are about to be playing tons of Stealthy Hoods in their decks, so it's not going to be working all too much against Mewtwo. Yeah, I keep thinking about Glaceon. Man, dude, Glaceon GX is so insane. I keep thinking about it in this standard format. I mean, look at this beautiful card. He's legal. Freezing Gaze. As long as this Pokemon's your active Pokemon, your opponent's Pokemon GX and EX in their hand and discard pile have no abilities, right? It should be so good. It should just be able to beat Mewtwo decks, right? But there's just no consistent way to power up Frost Bullet. Frost Bullet doesn't do quite enough damage. And unfortunately, Glaceon wouldn't really be able to beat any other decks, I don't think, in standard format. So even though I think it's a cool idea, not enough water support to make my poor Glaceon work. Let's talk a little bit about Volcarona. All right, chat. I've heard both sides. We have heard that Volcarona is overhyped. I've heard that Volcarona is the busted card. Let me know. What do you guys think about Volcarona in our upcoming standard format? It's got an ability, Scorching Bomb. Once during your turn before you attack, you may discard a fire energy from your hand. If you do, put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. It's got an attack, backfire, 160 damage. Return 2 fire energy from this Pokemon to your hand. And then Great Heat Wave GX. Discard an energy from each of your opponent's Pokemon. All right, we've got a lot of people in the chat saying it is busted. Cattywing says it's fine. I think that this card has potential, right? You do have to discard 2 fire energy. If you've noticed, though, in fire decks, a lot of the fire energy is a hot commodity, right? We're already using the Ninetales from Team Up to gust things with fire energy. Now, how often are you going to have 2 additional fire energy in hand to also place 2 damage counters? The fire energy are needed for welders. They're needed for your gust. Sometimes they're needed for draw if you have a heat factory in play, or you're really going to have 2 extra fire energy to use Scorching Bomb consistently. I think that you would need to build a deck entirely just to use Scorching Bomb effectively. Apparently, there were Silvally Volcarona decks in Japan where they were using the new Silvally GX, or maybe the old one. They were using Silvally GX and the memories, the different color memory cards, to deal damage, and then Scorching Bomb to fix the math, which is pretty cool. Let's see. Ender says it's a good tech to hit the numbers on Reshiram, Mew for Blacephalon. So Blacephalon GX could utilize this card, and that's fair. You could use Volcarona to bring 270 hit point Pokemon down to the 250 range. 250 hit points is much easier to hit than 270 for a deck like Blacephalon, which hits in increments of 50 damage, making that 20 damage very relevant. So I think that this card has potential. I'm not going to go ahead and say that it is like the most busted card ever. I think that it's got a shot to be played in some things. It is evolution. And again, like Braixen, it is competing for space with some of the most insane fire cards ever printed right now. This just happens to be the heyday of fire Pokemon. And if you're not a card like that new Charizard GX from Hidden Fates, or if you're not a card like Reshiram and Charizard GX or Heatran GX, it's very hard. Or the Ninetales from Team Up, Victini Prism Star, it's very hard to find a home in a fire deck right now. We've got this Vaporeon as well. I think all the evolutions are pretty interesting as long as this Pokemon is in play. The maximum hit points of each of your Pokemon GX that evolve from Eevee is increased by 60. I think this card's kind of neat. I mean, you could give your, all right, big brain, you could give your Glaceon Gx 260 hit points. But unfortunately, I still think Glaceon Gx is still not that good. You could give your Sylveon GX 260 hit points, which is sweet, but unfortunately, Sylveon GX is rotated out of standard and not that good in expanded. As far as the standard evolution GXs go, I mean, the one with the most potential to me seems to be Glaceon GX because it just has that ability, which is so strong. Jolteon GX is criminally underpowered now because of the rotation of Choice Band. Jolteon GX needed Choice Band in order to stay relevant with its damage output, and that card just can't get played anymore. Flareon GX is okay, you know, it's not bad, but like we said before, Flareon GX is just competing with all these other fire cards, right? For relevance, can deal 190 damage. It also gets a nice 270 hit points instead of 260, since it does start with 210. Bright Flame, discard 2 fire energy from this Pokemon. Does 190. 190 is not quite numbers that we need in order to hit any relevant one-hit knockouts right now. Power Burner GX is very good, but if you're using Power Burner GX, like, I feel like you don't really care if Flareon GX has an extra 60 hit points. So that's just, it's kind of my thought on that. Let's move on down. What else did we want to talk about from the new set? I heard some people mentioning the tag team supporters. I'll go over the Jolteon real quick while I'm on my way down. It's got an ability, Speed Yell. Each of your Pokemon GX in play that evolves from Eevee pays a colorless less to use its attacks. All right, Glaceon can attack for just a water and a colorless, you say. All right. Glaceon is definitely my favorite, my favorite of the evolutions, like I'd said. But I still think that these evolutions are not quite good enough to boost the evolution GXs into relevancy. Let's see. Lantern's got a neat ability. As often as you like during your turn, you may look at the top card of your opponent's deck and then return it to the top of their deck. So you can just take a little peek. Take a little peek at the top of the deck and see if you like it. Now, unfortunately, you don't get to... If you get to do like an added effect as often as you like, you look at the top card of your opponent's deck, and then if you don't like it, I would rather it be like once during your turn, you may look at the top card of your opponent's deck, and you may choose to put it at the bottom of their deck. That would be a much more powerful card. But I think that just getting to peek, it could be good in stall or control decks, but I'm not sure that it is quite as good as it needs to be. Let's see. Blast Bomb on Weezing. Once during your turn, before you attack, this Pokemon is discarded by the effect of Roxy. You may put 1 damage counter on each of your opponent's Pokemon. Okay. You get to resolve Roxy's effect first. Oh, I did hear people talking about the Pikachu and Raichu with Nuzzle. All right, let's talk about that. We've got Pikachu, knows Nuzzle. We've got Raichu, also knows Nuzzle. Now, this is a big deal because we've got the Pachirisu, who is the Nuzzle King, right? Not this one. This is the busted one we played to the top 8 finish. We've got Snuggly Generator. All right, Nuzzle King over here. Yo, Joshua. Thank you so much, Joshua, for that Twitch Prime sub, and everyone who's remembered the Twitch Prime subs this month. You guys rock. Thanks so much for supporting the channel. All right, we got Snuggly King, Nuzzle King over here. For each of your bench Pokemon that has a Nuzzle attack, search your deck for a Lightning Energy card and attach it to that Pokemon, then shuffle your deck. So it gets to just juice up all of your bench Pokemon with the Nuzzle attack, of which Pachirisu also has Nuzzle. So you can search your deck for potentially 5 Lightning Energies and put them into play, right? Which is pretty lit because you can charge up this Pikachu and also this Raichu. And then Raichu has an attack, Powerful Spark, it does 20 damage times the amount of lightning energy attached to your Pokemon. So if the cogs are turning there, we're like, all right, you can use Patchy, you can throw 5 energy in play, you get a ton of lightning energy in play, and then you Powerful Spark for infinite damage and take huge knockouts, right? That all sounds well and good, but let's start crunching the numbers a little bit here. So, Powerful Spark dealing 20 damage times the amount of lightning energy attached to your Pokemon. You need a cool 14 lightning energy in play in order to one-hit KO a tag team Pokemon GX with about 280 hit points, right? So 14 lightning energy. That is a lot, okay? And there's not really... I mean, there's Tapu Koko Prism Star, right? You can use that to kind of boost a couple more lightning energy into play. You can, like we said, you can Snuggly Generator. Is that the name of the deck? Snuggly? Yeah, Snuggly Generator for some, but I'm worried that the deck might be a little bit too slow. I'm pretty sure there is also a Lantern, right? There's a Lantern. But then if you use this Lantern, yeah, it's got energy grounding. When one of your Pokemon is knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack, you may move a basic energy card from that Pokemon to this Pokemon. And that's just like not as good as it needs to be, right? I think that the real combo that you would probably play is with Naganadel. I think, oh, why did I spell it wrong? Naganadel. I don't know how to spell, guys. All right, Naganadel. I think this is probably the best combo that you could use, right? And which means that we're not using Snuggly Generator. I don't think Snuggly Generator is quite as good as it needs to be. I think you need to use probably Charging Up and just be like charging up every turn and trying to do things that way with Charge Up and like Tapu Koko Prism Star. At least then you're like bringing lightning energy back every single turn. It still doesn't feel powerful enough to deal the one-hit knockouts that you need. And unfortunately, I don't think that it is going to be quite good enough to be meta. A fun deck, though, for sure. And I would love it. I love it when people prove me wrong. So please, if you're a real Raichu stan, please, please, please prove me wrong. Because I would love nothing more than to see a busted Raichu list that is meta competitive. Let's move on down. If you guys see anything or have any cards you want me to speak on here, or do you want to talk about as a group before we move out, let me know. But I am making my way down to the tag team supporters, which seem pretty good. There's a lot of good ones. So what does this Persian GX do? Smug Face, prevent all effects of attacks, including damage done to this Pokemon by your opponent's tag team Pokemon, Ultra Beast, and Pokemon with special energy on them. Wow, really covering a lot of bases there. 120 damage with Claw Slash, and then this attack does 120 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. Okay, I really like that ability. That's good, for sure. This card will just be good because, preventing attacks from tag team Pokemon, Ultra Beast, and Pokemon with special energy, it's really covering a lot of bases. The ability Mimikyu is busted as well. Did I miss that one? I thought I already talked about the ability. Yeah, I talked about that one already. No. I didn't talk about this one. Discard a supporter card from your hand. Yeah, I don't think that one's quite as good. This one's very good, though. The Blacephalon is insane. We are getting... Yeah, this guy. This guy's nuts. Let's talk about this guy. Depth Bomb. Put 4 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like. If your opponent has exactly 3 prize cards remaining, put 12 damage counters on that. All right, raise your hand in the chat if you are trying to play this card in your Malamar deck. Go ahead and, put them hands up high if this is something that you think that Malamar would like to use. I'm thinking that, yes, this will be an absolutely busted card in Malamar. I mean, what deck controls the prize trade better than Malamar at this point? Malamar is all single attacker, single prize attackers. So you're always going to get to that point when your opponent has exactly 3 prizes remaining, unless you for some reason give up a Tag Bolt, which you shouldn't do because you should be playing 2 Mew in your Malamar deck as well, and you should try not to let your opponent Tag Bolt you playing Malamar. Yeah, I can't remember the last time I Tag Bolted a Malamar deck, except I think we did it yesterday on stream. But forgetting about that, you never really get to Tag Bolt against Malamar, meaning that you're always going to get down to that 3 prizes remaining, getting you that sick, nasty 12 damage counters placed. I mean, let's just consider the following. If you play Malamar, how often have you ever won the game with a single cross-division GX? Not even the 20 damage counters one. How often have you won the game with a 10 damage counter cross-division if you're playing Malamar? Pretty often, right? The 10 damage counter cross-division just gets you there a lot of the time because you just need to finish off a tag team, or maybe you need to finish off a Dedenne or something like that. And the 10 damage counters with some Shrine of Punishment ticks and some spell tag damage will often get you there. Now, the Blacephalon is like using another cross division throughout the course of the game. You can do this for 12 damage counters, and then you can also, at the end of the game, come in with Espeon Deoxys and do 10 more or 20 more, right? So I think the Blacephalon just gives you such insane control over where the damage counters are placed. Even this attack, Depth Bomb, is still very good. Put 4 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like. That combined with Spell Tag, you have the potential to place 8 damage counters wherever you want, not even on the 3 prize turn. So I think this card is a game changer for Malamar. It will be played in Malamar decks, and it's going to make them even more powerful than they were before. And then, if you guys were already sick of Malamar Mirrors, this card is going to make Malamar Mirrors even worse. Because not only are you going to have to try and navigate playing around your opponent's gigantic cross-division play, which is also going to be having a wrench thrown in it, because no longer are you going to be able to safely build up a 6 energy cross division on your bench, because Malamar decks are going to start playing Great Catcher, meaning that you won't be able to just put Espeon Deoxys down, put 3 energy on it, and pass, right? So since you can't do that anymore, now you're going to have to try and navigate around that. And you're also going to have to navigate around the 3 prize turn. Because if you ever give your opponent the 3 prize Blacephalon, just pack it up. I mean, I don't think that there's going to be a lot of options to play around the 3 prize Blacephalon. I mean, if you let your opponent play into that, I think it's pretty much a lose scenario. Especially if they got a spell tag on that thing. I mean, that's 16 damage counters placed. So, very crazy addition to the Malamar deck. I do love the artwork on it as well. I mean, the stars, the explosion, the Blacephalon just prancing out of this explosion. What in the world is going on there? Very awesome artwork. Very cool card. Gonna bring a lot of depth to the Malamar deck, the Malamar Mirrors. And that 4 damage snipe attacks also incredibly good. We got a question about Sky Pillar. I believe it does. Yes, Sky Pillar does block, including damage, prevent all effects. Yes, so it does block the damage counters placed. That is a tech that you could play for Malamar, but my problem with that is that Malamar is already playing 4 or 5 stadiums. So the odds of your Sky Pillar sticking against a Malamar deck are insanely low, and unfortunately not really going to be super effective there. All right, Marshadow as well. What's the new Marshadow do? Anything good? Shadow Mimic. Choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon's attacks, excluding a GX attack, and use it as this attack. That's pretty good. This will compete with space, with Mimikyu, right? The difference is that Mimikyu has to use an attack that was just used, but it only costs 2 energy. This doesn't have to use an attack that was just used, but it costs 3. I think Mimikyu is better because, I mean, how many attacks do the Pokemon really have? And having that potential 2 energy attacker in your deck is a big deal. And how often is there going to be a Pokemon in your active position that's not using one of their non-GX attacks? To be fair, though, I think that Marshadow is better with Great Catcher. So if you consider Great Catcher, right, and the potential of Great Catcher in Malamar decks, you can use Malamar or Marshadow here in a Malamar deck to bring up a bench Pokemon and use its attack without them wanting you to, right? So I think that that is an interesting little tidbit there about Marshadow. But I do think that, yeah, and Riley says, yeah, Marshadow can't be played around with Reshiram. So I think that it does have some better uses there too. It will compete for space with Mimikyu. You know, which card players prefer, we'll have to see. I think that it is very valuable having a 2-energy attacker in the Malamar deck. But then again, we've got a new 2-energy attacker, so this guy might just take the spot. And I think that that's fair. Since the Blacephalon now attacks for 2 energy, you've got the Mew from Unbroken Bonds, which attacks for 1 energy, and then this guy can just be a nice little 3-energy attacker who is more flexible than Mimikyu. So I think that's probably fair. For sure. And, yeah, you can't use it versus... That's a big deal as well. The Marshadow cannot copy an attack versus Mewtwo and Mew Tag Team GX because it has to copy an attack printed on the card, right? And it can't copy the GX attack. So that is unfortunate there. Mimikyu does get a little check mark there for those reasons. We've got this Alolan Ninetales. Brady keeps saying that he thinks this card's going to be busted. It's got Dust Blow, 10 times damage. This attack does 10 damage for each Pokemon tool card in your discard pile. Brady, I don't think, unfortunately, that Ninetales is going to be doing enough damage for us. Even though it attacks for free, which is insane, right? You got to have like 20 tools in the discard pile. That's a 30-year deck. How are you going to get 30 tools in your discard pile? You know, 27 tools to deal 270 damage. That's half your deck. Now, maybe, though, I could see it. Okay, so let's start talking about it. The whole deck is Ninetales, Zebstrika. It's Ninetales and Zebstrika, and maybe a Dedenne, right? So if you just play Ninetales, Zebstrika, and Dedenne, and you just gassing through the deck, just discarding all the tools, right? Then you could deal infinite damage. We got some people in the chat saying it's a worse Rotom. I don't believe that it's a worse Rotom because Alolan Ninetales has an infinite damage ceiling, which is good. That's what we want. You know, it can also use the charms as well. I think, you know, you put your big brain hat on, we might be able to make this deck work. Hot Cup of Noodles with the Twitch Prime sub. Thanks, Hot Cup, for supporting the channel. We've also got 2 new Lost Marchers entering the ring. That's right. Both Cottony and Whimsicott. Cottony and Whimsicott making their way into the Lost March ring. All right, y'all. Talk to me. Do you think that Cottony and Whimsicott coming to the Lost March squad are going to make Lost March a viable deck, or is that still just, oh, wow, look how big he is now. Or is that just not happening? I think that as much as I love to see one of my favorite Pokemon printed as a Lost Marcher, it's not good enough, right? Not good enough. Unfortunate. Whimsicott doesn't even have an attack. Choose a card from your hand, put it in the Lost Zone, then draw 3 cards. Still not good enough, right? And you can hit Dragon Weakness. That's kind of neat. But still not impressed enough. Alright, we're at the Dragon Pokemon. This is the big, bad Dragon Pokemon of the set. We've got like 3 big GXs here we could talk about. And, you know, they all got some interesting things going on. Arceus, Dialga, and Palkia GX, Ultimate Ray, 150 damage. Search your deck for up to 3 basic energy cards. Attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. Cost of water, or metal, and colorless. So a nice acceleration attack. Reminds us a lot of Pikarom. I mean, really, that's like Full Blitz with extra steps, right? It's just a more complicated Full Blitz attack. And you get to get 3 basic energy cards attached to your Pokemon in any way you like. And they don't have to all be the same color. So that's pretty cool. The attack cost is a little bit of a pain. Yes, Grammar Time, we will go down to the supporters for sure. I'm just making my way down there. And then we got Ultra Creation GX. For the rest of the time, your opponent's attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. This Pokemon has 1 extra water energy attached to it. When your opponent's active Pokemon is knocked out from damage from attacks, take 1 more prize card. That's an insane GX attack. Getting to gas your attacks up by 30. And then you take extra prize cards when you take knockouts. Very strong there. So, I do like this card. We'll have to see how we end up playing it. Are there any supporter cards that help kind of make that card more viable? I mean, expanded, you got double dragon energy. But how are we juicing this card up with energy? I mean, Pikarom has got Tapu Koko, Thunder Mountain, but what are we using to get water and metal energies onto this card? Manually or via Ends Resolve? Those are the options for this deck. Ends Resolve is an acceleration option for Dragon Pokemon, so we'll have to take a look at that. Ultimately, I think that maybe this card gets played in some sort of wild and crazy toolbox deck, but it might just be a little bit too complicated. We'll have to see. Oh, there's also Zinnia is an option as well. Let's take a look at Reshiram and Zekrom Gx. Reshiram, as I'm sure it will be called, Reshiram Gx. It's even got N right there on the card. Thunder Flame Dream, 90 times damage. Discard up to 3 in any combination of basic fire and lightning energy from your bench Pokemon. It does 90 damage for each card you discard in this way. So a fantastic one-hit KO attack. You discard 3 energy from your bench Pokemon and you deal 270 damage. Fantastic. I think that you do need, you need 5 energy in play in order to deal 270 damage. A lot of people are talking about playing this card with Naganadel, right? I spelled it right. It's all right. You play with Naganadel from Lost Thunder. You use Charging Up to bring energy back into play turn after turn, right? And then you gas up this thing with either Welder or Ends Resolve or something, right? You Welder, Ends Resolve, you get energy into play, and then you use Naganadel to charge it back up. You can use Mysterious Treasure in order to search out both your Naganadels and your Reshirams, which is cool. Riley is saying it's a less consistent Blacephalon, and I tend to agree. I think the weaknesses of this deck are that it should be very poor against non-GX decks. Yo, Exia Quanta, thanks for that Twitch Prime sub, and everyone who's remembered their Twitch Prime subs this month. Thank you guys so much for being a part of Tricky Jim. Welcome, welcome. 5 months, Exia. Thanks. So Reshiram, I think that it's a little bit overhyped. I think that it'll really struggle with non-GX decks. How does a deck like this beat a deck like Blacephalon? You can't, right? Blacephalon just trades better than with you, right? How does a deck like this beat a deck like, even Gardevoir and Sylveon? Doesn't Gardevoir and Sylveon have a charm, right? I think there is a... Let's see, charm. What charms do we have? Charms. I typed in charms. Charm. Charmeleon. Not what I'm looking for. Here we go. Fairy Charm. We got Fairy Charm Lightning, Fairy Charm Ability, Fairy Charm Ultra Beast. Is there a dragon one? There is. Fairy Charm Dragon from Lost Thunder. Man. Gardevoir and Sylveon might even be able to give this thing a run around. And Gardevoir Sylveon one-shots it because of that fairy weakness. And so I think that it'll struggle against Malamar. I think it'll struggle against Guardy Sylveon. I think it'll probably struggle against Pidgeotto, right? You guys, Pidgeotto is like a top deck in the format right now. It's crazy. We keep thinking about Pidgeotto. Is absolutely insane and was all over the top tables at the Knoxville Regional Championships. So I think it'll be tough to get this behemoth to work in the metagame. I think in a vacuum, yes, all right, this thing can one-hit KO Pikaroms. Nobody's business. This thing can one-hit KO Mewtwo's like nobody's business. But is the deck going to have the versatility to stand up in a metagame that is more than 2 decks? I'm not sure. At least Reshiram and Charizard Gx, right? It can deal 300 damage with Reshiram and Charizard, but it can also deal damage with Turtonator, Baby Blacephalon, and Victini Prism Star. Whereas a deck like this, you're more pigeonholed into just using Thunderflame Dream because the whole deck has to be constructed in order to use Thunderflame Dream because it's such a weird attack to use. It's not like, you know, a general fire deck where you could just attack with anybody that takes fire energy, or a general lightning deck where you can throw in Hoopa and Zapdos and just, you know, use those very easily. I mean, you could toss a Hoopa in here. Sure. You could toss 2 Hoopas, 3 Hoopas in here if you wanted to, if your Malamar matchup is that bad. But I'm concerned about its versatility versus a lot of decks. I think that the deck has potential. The potential is there. Any deck that can easily deal 270 damage, we got to take a look at it. I'm worried about its, its versatility though. And then Crossbreak GX, sniping 170 to 2 different bench Pokemon is absolutely wild. It's just 2 fire, 2 lightning, and you get to do 170 twice. It's kind of like I would say it's probably a worse Tag Bolt, right? It can't be boosted by Electro Power. It can only damage Pokemon on the bench. Slightly worse Tag Bolt, but still very good. Naganadel and Gus Lord GX. This card's getting a decent amount of hype too. It's got a whopping 280 hit points. Gluttony, once during your turn before you attack, you may discard a Pokemon from your hand. If you do, heal 60 damage from this Pokemon. So it's a nice little tank there. You get to glance off 60 damage every single turn, and then it's got that Chaos Order GX for a colorless plus. Flip over your remaining prize cards. If you have 1 extra Psychic and 1 Dark attached to it, you take 2 prize cards. Get to take 2 prize cards just right off rip is insane. Love that. GX attack's my favorite part of this card. And then just Psychic Dark colorless, dealing 180 damage. Very vanilla. I'm not sure if this card is going to be good enough to be the backbone of a deck itself, but it certainly could fit into decks like Dark Box, maybe. I think that the card may just not have what it takes to be super meta, though. I mean, at the end of the day, 180 damage, that was the old number you needed to hit. Now, if you're not hitting 270, what are you doing? I mean, this card can certainly get one hit knocked out by plenty of things, but I don't think that it necessarily does enough, right? I mean, getting to heal off 60 is cool, but ultimately it can only heal off 60 every turn. If it could do it more than once per turn, then we'd be talking. Then maybe you got a whole stall deck on your hands here. But only being able to heal off 60 is a little bit rough. I think that maybe that Lucario and Melmetal deck is just the better stall deck, right, than a deck like this. So Gluttony doesn't actually help you advance towards, like, you know, your goal. If you want to be a stall deck, it doesn't really help with that, right? Cards like Lucario and Melmetal just do this better, right? They do Gluttony, but better. And then Chaos Order GX is like, I think Burst GX is just better, right? Burst GX is the better prize manipulator, just taking a prize for a fire energy. Sledgehammer. Yo, thanks, Sledgehammer, for that Twitch Prime sub. Keep it up. Congrats on top 8. Gracias. And then also, I think that Naganadel GX's GX attack. What is it? How many times have I had to look up Naganadel today? I mean, that card is just good. All the Naganadels are good. What are we talking about? Stinger GX. I think Stinger GX is also like a better, you know, prize-controlled GX attack. You can do it for a triple acceleration energy. I think Stinger GX is just stronger, right, than Chaos Order GX. And I think the Dark Box has a lot more powerful options than using this as their GX attack. Like, I would rather use Umbreon and Darkrai's GX attack or Mega Sableye and Tyranitar's GX attack in Dark Box than just using that thing. So that is my thought there. All right, let me know, chat. If there's any other cards we want to go over, I'm going to make my way down to the trainers while we think. Silvally GX. Okay, this card's insane. Absolutely wild card. We got Glaceon there in the background. They keep trying to make Silvally GX a thing. The Pokemon Company must love this Pokemon because they keep printing it. I mean, how many Silvallis do we have? Let's be honest. How many Silvallis? There's a million of them. G-Unit. We've got like a million of this one. There's a shiny one. There's this guy. There's this guy. Who wanted this to be printed? Literally nobody. I don't think anybody in the world wanted this to show up in Ultra Prism. This is obvious. You were like the saltiest if you opened this out of Ultra Prism. This is the last card you wanted to see. We got this one, who's also shiny. We've got this one. We've got this one. We've got that one. And we've got that one. There are an absurd number of Silvally cards, considering the card just came out in Sun and Moon. And then we're getting another one. Okay. Tell us a little bit about Silvally GX. Once during your turn before you attack, you may draw cards from your deck until you have 5 cards in your hand. Absolutely insane ability. Love it. It's basically the return of Octillery. Okay, if you guys remember. Is that how you spell it? Please help me. Oh, no. Octillery. There we are. All right. It's the return of Abyssal Hand. Once during your turn before you attack, you may draw cards until you have 5 cards in your hand. Abyssal Hand, interesting enough, Abyssal Hand was really bad the first year it was legal, okay? And if you want to get some perspective on the history of Octillery, Octillery came out in Breakthrough, and for the first year that it was legal during the same time as Shaman EX. So, competing with Shaman EX was just the superior card. In 2017, when I remember specifically in 2017, I played Drampa Zoroark, right? And that was the year that I finished top 8 at the North American International Championships. Some people were talking about putting Octillery in their Zoroark decks. I played a Shaman instead. Shaman was just a better card. Yeah, a little humble brag. What's up? Yeah, that's right. Had to sneak that one in. All right. But yeah, some people were playing Octillery in their Zoroark decks. Shaman was the better card, though. More people played Shaman. What's interesting is that we find ourselves in a situation now where we have a very similar dynamic going on, right? Dedenne is legal. Dedenne is like Shaman. And this Silvally is like Octillery. Now, Octillery became insane as soon as Shaman rotated out of standard format. When Shaman left, Octillery became the new king of hand draw, right? That was very good. And it was played specifically in Buzzrock decks. And the reason why it was so good in Buzzrock decks is because you could Brooklet Hill for your Buzzwoles and for your Remoraid's. And it would help set the whole deck up, and you could get end to low, and you could draw out of it with Octillery. Now, my problem with Silvally is that Silvally gets stopped by Power Plant, okay? So it gets stopped by Power Plant. A lot of times players are trying to use Reset Stamp and Power Plant in the same turn. This is not a non-GX, so I think, apples to apples, Octillery being a non-GX makes it a better card than Silvally because Octillery, A, won't get targeted down as often on the bench because it is a non-GX Pokemon. B, it doesn't get stopped by things that shut down basic ability. It didn't get stopped by cards like Muck. Won't get stopped by cards like Muck. It won't get stopped by cards like Power Plant or Silent Lab, things like that. Silvally GX does get stopped by Power Plant. It does get stopped by things that are trying to target Pokemon GX abilities. And, that could be a problem for it being a card that draws us out of late game late game reset stamps. Silvally also needs to compete with space with Jirachi. Jirachi right now, Stellar Wish ability, doesn't really have a lot of checks in standard format. Y'all know what Jirachi does. But if we take a look, right? Jirachi is kind of the king of drawing us out of late game stamps right now. I mean, Pikarom's using Jirachi. You've got Malamar uses Jirachi. And it doesn't get stopped by stamp. It's easier to get into play. It's a basic Pokemon. And I think that's, as far as deck space is concerned, Jirachi is kind of just easier to get more bang for your buck. If you're putting like 4 spaces to a Pokemon, Jirachi is just easier than Silvally. But we haven't really considered any of the pros of Silvally. All right, we got Silvally GX. It's got the ability, which maybe isn't quite as good as Octillery's. It's not quite as good as Stellar Wish on Jirachi, but it's got some attacks as well, and it can be used with the memory tool cards. Buddy Brave, 50 plus damage. If you played a supporter card from your hand during this turn, it does 70 more. So it does 120 damage for 2 colorless. You can use triple acceleration energy, and you can change the type. You're right. Yeah, you're right, Riley. Jirachi also does take about 5 switch cards. That's fair. Which I would argue are very good in your deck anyway, but that is true. It does take a lot of switch cards. Silvally GX got Buddy Brave. Is just simply worse than the other Silvally GX's attack. If we take a look. Turbo Drive does 120 for 3. At this point, the difference between 2 and 3 is almost nothing since you do have triple acceleration energy. And then Welder, technically this attack is easier to use with Welder than this one, but this one can still be used with a single Welder as well. And you get to attach basic energy from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon. So this Turbo Drive attack is simply better than this one, though it is nice to have an attack on it. Manderson, thanks so much for that Twitch Prime sub, Manderson. And then it's got White Knight GX. If your opponent's active Pokemon is an Ultra Beast, that Pokemon is knocked out. Woo! I love that. I mean, that's just phenomenal. Automatic knockout on an Ultra Beast. Can't be mad about it. So, getting to pair Silvallies with the memories, you could use Welder Engine, you could use triple acceleration energies, and then apparently Japanese lists are also playing the Volcarona GX to fix some of the math. So the idea is that you want to use the memories to make your Silvallies attack for different types, like Water Memory. You can hit Fire Pokemon for weakness. Grass Memory. Who wants to be Grass type? Nobody. You could play a Fire Memory if you're worried about John Mustawi's new Metal deck, which, plays the Frying Pan, so you won't be able to hit for that anyway. Lightning Weakness, not a big deal. Psychic, that's the other big one. It's rotated. So you can't even hit for Psychic Weakness. Yikes. All right, well, that's bad news. So Silvally not being able to hit for Psychic Weakness, I think, really holds it back. And unfortunate, because if you could hit for Psychic Weakness, that would be big. Being able to, they're going to play Jirachi GX anyway, so I'm not exactly sure. And then you can't play Power Plant because you want your abilities, and it's just like a lot of different complications to the Silvally card. I think Silvally has a lot of potential. I don't think it's immediately going to see a ton of play and success, though I could be totally just wrong on that. Could be wrong. Some people might just play a Ditto and a Silvally GX in their deck, and then they just got these gassed up hands, and they're just drawing things all the time. So I could be completely wrong. I think Silvally is very good. It will see play. I'm not sure that it is going to be like the most busted card in format. It's got a lot of things to compete with. It does have Jirachi, and it also just is competing for space with other cards. Beastite is something that I have heard quite a bit about. Let's talk about Beastite for a minute. It's a Pokemon tool. Attach a Pokemon tool to one of your Pokemon. Doesn't have a tool. We all know how tools work. The attacks of the Ultra Beast card that this Ultra Beast card is attached to do 10 more damage for each prize card you have taken to your opponent's active Pokemon. So if you've taken 3 prizes, you do 30 more damage. If you've taken 4 prizes, you do 40 more damage. If you've taken no prizes, you do no more damage. So that's cool, right? And I think that this card is the closest thing to a Choice Band that we have in standard format right now, and it's only for Ultra Beasts, so I think that Pokemon like Blacephalon will probably love this thing. Baby Blacephalon and Big Boy Blacephalon GX. I think both Blacephalons will love this card, and could potentially use it to help fix the math at the end of the game. I think that in a Blacephalon deck, this card is just better than Volcarona. We had talked a little bit about potentially throwing Volcarona GX into a Blacephalon to fix the numbers. I think I'd rather try to fix the numbers with this thing. And this thing, you know, just a good card. It's a good card, but it only is going to see play in Ultra Beast decks. So there you have it, right? You're right, Grammar Time. Buzzmosa could potentially use it. And you could, let's see, are there any Ultra Beasts that you're playing in Malamar right now? Not, I mean, there's the new Blacephalon, but the new Blacephalon can't really use this. So not really. Right? Or not, is there any Ultra Beasts that we're playing in Malamar right now? I'm thinking about, yeah, Malamar. Huh. Yeah, I don't think that there's anything in Malamar that would love that. So, yep, pretty much a Blacephalon card. I think Chaotic Swell is absolutely nuts. This card is very good. Very, very, very good. Now, what's crazy is that Mewbox would probably love this card. But the fact that Mewbox just needs to be playing Giant Hearths means that it won't get to play this card. But any card that wants to stop a stadium from coming into play, I mean, this is insane. If someone tries to counter this stadium, then that stadium gets gobbled up, which is very cool. We got King Speedlemon saying Nagquag loves that card. Nagquag, this can stop power plants from coming into play to block Keldeo, which is insane, right? So Keldeo decks probably love this because power plants cannot be played to bump one, which is nuts. If you play this card down, your opponent plays a power plant, both stadiums get discarded, then during your turn, if you play one again, you know, you just make it so that power plant can't be played. Mewbox also, like I said, would love this card, but it wants too many other stadiums, I think. I think that card has a ton of potential, will be great. And this card will be seen in a lot of decks. I mean, in a lot of decks, I think I think this card has a lot of shelf life. As long as stadiums have no no removal card like Field Blower, as long as there's not a Field Blower card or something like that, I think this card will be very good. And then also, it's just different than Field Blower because it prevents them from coming into play. There's not really, to my knowledge, there's not really a card that acts quite like this. Reset Hole Marshadow is the card to get around it. That's fair. You can use Reset Hole Marshadow to discard the Chaotic Swell. But a lot of decks aren't playing that. Mewbox is the only deck right now that is playing, consistently playing the Resetting Hole Marshadow. So that's a good point. We've also got Bellelba. I don't know who Bellelba is. To be honest, I don't know. And Braixen. Who's Braixen Man? I don't know. When you play this card, you may discard 3 other cards from your hand. If you do, each player discards bench Pokemon until he or she has 3 Pokemon on the bench. Discard 3 other cards. I don't think this card, it's like a worse Parallel City. Apparently this is Sabrina. It's her actress, her stage name, if you will. Oh, that's cool. From Black and White 2. I never played Black and White 2. Got it. Thanks, guys. So this is apparently Sabrina in disguise. I think that this is just strictly a worse Parallel City. You may discard 3 cards from your hand. Each player discards bench Pokemon until they have 3 Pokemon on their bench. Yeah, it just really makes you miss Parallel City. Parallel City was just so good, right? I mean, that, in my opinion, Parallel City is still one of the best stadium cards ever printed. This is insane. Just getting to automatic bump your opponent to 3 Pokemon, and you don't have to. This, both of you bump to 3 Pokemon, and you have to discard 3 cards from your opponent's hand. Pretty mediocre, if I had to say. Clay, discard the top 7 cards of your deck. Reveal all item cards discarded in this way to your opponent, and then put them into your hand. Huh. That's interesting. Clay. People are talking about using clay. Maybe you get to use clay in that Alola Ninetales deck that we were talking about, right? Look at the top 7 cards of your deck. You could put them all into your hand, and then you could sprint them away with your Zebstrika. Am I right? That'd be insane. People are saying this card would be very good in Pidgey as well. Potentially. Yeah, just getting to dig 7 cards and get all the items out of your deck. Pidgey does play a ton of item cards, so it could be good in that also. And then Pidgeotto would also love this card because it just pitches the other things to the discard pile, which then you could resource management back in. So you do have to be careful when playing this, though, because you can't just play this whenever if you're a Pidgey deck. Like if you only have 1 Oranguru left and you accidentally discard your other Oranguru, that could be problematic. Or what if you discard all of your Orangurus? Then you just lose the game, which would also be problematic. So you would have to play it. You could only play it when you have an Oranguru active. That way you could resource management in the cards that you need back into the deck. So like if you discard both Articunos off of it, it's cool. I got an Oranguru in the active. We'll chuck them back into the deck. Most of the time you are going to be digging and just finding item cards, so I think it's good for that. But you could get yourself into some kind of chaotic situations as a Pidgey player. If you discarded too many energy, if you discarded too many Pokemon, could be kind of rough. So I think maybe at the end of the game, when you really narrow down your deck and you know that your deck is only, X cards, then it could be good there. Cynthia and Caitlin, put a supporter card from your discard pile into your hand. When you play this card, you may discard 1 card from your hand. If you do, draw 3 cards. It's like you get to draw a little bit, and you get to play like kind of a half Lusamine. I think that's fine. This card is fine. Getting to bring back a supporter card, draw 3. A little bit of versatility. It's a little bit underwhelming. Like it's not quite as good as Lusamine, and it's not quite as good as a draw card, like a real draw supporter. But I think that this is a fine middle of the road. It's kind of like, think of it like Tate and Liza, right? Tate and Liza is a switch card, and it's a mediocre draw card. And because of its versatility, you can play it in some decks because it gets to be both in one spot. Similarly, Cynthia and Caitlin is both Lusamine and like a super draw card all in one. I think that it's a fine card. It might find some places somewhere, but it's certainly not going to be in like every deck. Dragonium Z. Attach a Pokemon tool to one of your Pokemon that doesn't already have a tool attached to it. I always accidentally read that part. If this card is attached to a Pokemon with a Dragon Claw attack, that Pokemon can use the GX attack on this card. What is it? Dragon Burn, 80 times damage. Discard all basic energy attached to this Pokemon. It does 80 damage for each card discarded in this way. So you got to discard 3 to do 240. Okay. I think it's a little bit underwhelming. Most of the time you're not going to be accommodating for a Pokemon that has the Dragon Claw attack just to do this. Kind of like Normalium. I haven't seen a single good Z card yet, unfortunately. Wow, Erica. Each player may draw up to 3 cards. That's insane. We're getting a reprint of the old Erica card from back in the day. Where are you at? Here we are, yes. You may draw up to 3 cards, and your opponent may draw up to 3 cards. That's wild. That's from the what? The Gym Hero set? So that's crazy. I actually have a bunch of that card in my cube, and it's a ton of fun in that format. I'm not sure that Erica will be seen in standard play. Draw 3 when your opponent getting to draw 3 is not quite as good. And unfortunately, we can't even use the old artwork because it says it's a supporter now. And this one was just a trainer, so sad. Guzma and Hala. Search your deck for a stadium card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. Ooh, you're telling me I can get Thunder Mountain? When you play this card, you may discard 2 cards from your hand. If you do, you may also search your deck for a Pokemon tool and special energy card, reveal them, and put them into your hand. Okay. Interesting little tidbit there. If you're playing a deck that has some sort of wombo combo with tools, stadiums, and special energies, then this is your card. If not, then this is not the card for you. I talked about Great Catcher at length earlier in the stream. This was like the first card that I talked about. I I'm not just glancing over it. Defunk! Defunk, thanks so much for the sub. Says, congrats to you and Natalie on your regional finishes. Glad to see such an evolution of not only standard play, but this community as well. Keep up the great work. Can't wait to see what Sword and Shield is going to be bringing to the table. Thank you so much, Defunk, for the kindness and the support. Great Catcher, I think, is going to be seen played alongside Custom Catcher in some decks. I think some decks will really love it. Like I said, Malamar and Mewtwo are going to love Great Catcher. Malamar specifically because it gets to target down, you know, Pokemon GX without having to play 4 Custom Catcher. I think Mewtwo's also really going to like it. I think Pikarom may play a split. Island Challenge Amulet. This card's pretty wild. Attached Pokemon tool. Oh, I'm not reading that part. The max HP of the Pokemon GX or EX this card's attached to is reduced by 100, but if it's knocked out by damage from the attacks of your opponent's Pokemon, then take 1 less prize card. I think this is really interesting. Banned in Japan's format already. Huzzy Nightmare 92, thanks for that Twitch Prime sub. And we got CCVE with that Twitch Prime sub. Thank you so much, guys. Let's get some whoops going in the chat. Yeah. Thank y'all. Back to back out here. All right, Island Challenge Amulet. I think Island Challenge Amulet was banned from what, the Japanese format where they have Jirachi EX. And people were using this to go get a supporter and then to knock out your Jirachi EX and then limit your opponent's hand, like knock their hand away turn 1. So that card was already banned. It's not going to be banned from our standard format because there's no crazy wombo combos like that. They were attaching it to Jirachi EX. If you don't know what Jirachi EX does, we'll go ahead and look it up. This guy. Beautiful. I have a full art one myself, one of my favorite full arts. It was banned in their expanded format. Yep. Stellar Guidance, you go get to search your deck for supporter cards. Basically a miniature Tapu Lele GX. And then they were searching for supporter cards and then killing it off with Island Challenge Amulet and then playing like Surge and, Surge and Mars. Crazy stuff. Just basically just destroying their hand. You could go get, I think what it was is like you get Surge, you could get, and then you stamp them, and then you could get like Jesse James. Yeah. Crazy stuff like that. Riley says you spam Jirachi and Mismagius to get a full hand lock combo turn 1, and then you use Tina Chomp to toss the Pokemon and win the game. Yeah. Basically, Jirachi, Amulet, Surge, Stamp, Jesse James, and the game's over. So, pretty ridiculous in expanded formats. This card will probably get banned in expanded formats because of its ability to be comboed with Jirachi EX. In standard format, we've got a little bit more of an interesting kind of situation afoot. You can attach it to, a tag team Pokemon. Make your tag team Pokemon only have 170. You basically could turn your tag team Pokemon into a regular Pokemon GX, which is crazy. Right? I think that's insanely powerful. Being able to make it so that your Pikaroms only give up 2 prizes. Who cares if they only got 170 hit points? I mean, that's kind of crazy. You can make it so your Mewtwo and Mew only gives up 2 prizes. I think at a certain point, like Mewtwo and Mew, you probably don't want to put it on a Mewtwo and Mew because 170 hit points is like too easy to KO. The 270 hit point Pokemon like really want to hang on to their 270 hit points. You're right, Riley. You probably don't want to put it down versus like a Giratina. But I think that it could be good in some tag team decks. I don't know. Like Pikarom's the one where I'm like maybe Pikarom could use it because it's so weak anyway that like 140 hit points like for 2 prizes. Sure. I don't think I would play it in my Pikarom deck, but it's an interesting card. Blacephalon GX could be good with it, making Blacephalon GX only worth 1 prize, but he's only got 80 hit points. I can knock that out with Zapdos. So we'll have to see on Island Challenge Amulet. I think it's certainly an interesting card. Right, we'll have to see how it gets played. Lana's Fishing Rod. Shuffle 1 Pokemon and 1 Pokemon tool card from your discard pile into your deck. Wow, okay. Finally, something that is almost like a rescue stretcher. One Pokemon and one tool card. Very interesting. And there's tool recovery. So you could play this in your Gardevoir and Sylveon deck. Holy smokes. If you play one of these in Gardevoir and Sylveon, you could turn your 2 Psychic Charms into 3 Psychic Charms. You can turn your 2 Lightning Charms into 3 Lightning Charms. That's kind of crazy. Malamar, hello. You get to put spell tags back into the deck. Turn your 4 spell tags into 5 spell tags. Also, Malamar, boy oh boy, they get to get their Pokemon back. They can go get their baby Blacephalon back that they're going to be playing. They can go get their Marshadow back that they might be playing. They can go get a Malamar back. They can put a Malamar back into the deck. Insane. You have not been able to do that yet. You can put Mew back into the deck. Oh my gosh, Malamar is going to love this card. That's absolutely wild. Fantastic card for Malamar. And they can shuffle a tool back. I think Malamar and Guardy Sylveon are both going to love this card. It's definitely better in Malamar, though. Malamar loves this, and that is going to help make Malamar just a slightly more versatile than it was previously. So, excellent. Lily's best effort, draw 4 cards from the deck. If you have 3 or more cards in your hand at the end of this turn, shuffle cards into the deck until you have 2 remaining. What? That's kind of whack, Lily. You're telling me it's like a coach trainer for any deck, but if I have cards in my hand at the end of the turn, I have to shuffle cards until I have 2 remaining. That's whack. I can't get behind it. Sorry, Lily. Can't do it. A supporter that doesn't let me end the turn with hand advantage? No. All right. Lily's Clefairy Doll. Look at this thing. Why does it have this artwork? This artwork is kind of whack. Why does it have like little fur on it? It's like the whole thing is not covered in fur. Is it supposed to be to show that it's a doll? It's just got little fur like here and here and here and here, but like not everywhere though. That's kind of funny. The Lily chewed on it. I guess. Play this card as if it were a 30 hit point colorless basic Pokemon. At any time during your turn before you attack, you may put this card on the bottom of your deck. That's insane. This card can't retreat, and if it's knocked out, your opponent can't take any prize cards. This card is busted. Oh my gosh. It's like the return of Robo Sub. We got Robo Sub, right? No, not Robo Sun. I wish it would find like the closest things. Robo Sub, right? 30 HP, colorless basic Pokemon, can't retreat, knocked out, no prizes. Same thing. Except it's got the added bonus. You may put this card on the bottom of your deck, right? Insane. It's a better Robo Sub. Sure, Caddy Wings, you could put energy on it. I'm not sure why you would want to put energy on it because it can't attack and it can't retreat. This card is used for stall decks. Plain and simple. You could play the Hitmonchan deck as well. Oh my gosh, yeah. You could if you wanted to. Hitmonchan. Okay. You could do hit and run. Switch this Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. Throw the Clefairy Doll into the active. Right. Now you only get 4 Clefairy Dolls. Now in expanded format. Alright. In expanded format, though, you can play all of them. You could play 4 Robo Subs and 4 Clefairy Doll if you wanted to. Absolutely insane. You could also play it with Behem. Behem is a Pokemon in standard format that does another hit and run attack. Mysterious Noise, right? You could use Mysterious Noise. Poke for 90 damage. Throw up your Clefairy Doll. Pretty wild. It's like the best wall ever for a Behem deck. I think that this card is busted, will be very good. Somebody will create a deck that is just horrifying to play against using this thing. Mallow and Lana. Switch your active Pokemon on with one of your bench Pokemon. When you play this card, you may discard 2 cards from your hand. If you do, heal 120 damage from the new active Pokemon. So that's pretty good. Alright, it's just a switch and a heal in one. That's not bad. People are playing, people are playing Tate and Liza index. I think that John Mustawi's metal deck from the top 16 of this past weekend, the Lucario metal deck, I think that deck could potentially like a card like this. Just a switch and a heal? Yeah, why not? 120? It does heal from the new active, which is odd. So it's not like a heal and run thing. It's like it's gotta, you would almost have to play it in combination with switch. Switch your active Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. Yeah, odd. I think that you could probably run this in that Lucario Metal deck. Figure out a way to play some more switch cards, and healing 120 damage is just absolutely insane in that deck. So definitely a good card. 120 damage heal is like not a joke at all, considering there's also double mixed herbs. There's also Great Potion in this. Gardevoir and Sylveon, good point. I think Gardevoir and Sylveon will also love this card. You get to not only switch, Gardevoir and Sylveon's playing 4 switches right now. Getting to use a switch effect and 120 heal, absolutely busted. So Gardevoir and Sylveon will love this thing. I think that new Lucario Metal deck will also love this card. Maybe even maybe Green's Reshizard. I do think Green's decks are more likely to love this card than most other decks. I think that it's better in Gardevoir and the Metal deck. Best in Gardevoir because it can tag switch. That's a good point. We've got Torque in the chat saying that, yeah, you can combo it with tag switch to make sure that your energy is right. I do like that. Misty and Lorelei. Check them out. We got the water and ice trainers here. Search your deck for up to 3 water energy cards. Reveal them, put them in your hand, then shuffle your deck. When you play this card, you may discard 5 cards from your hand. If you do, during this turn, your water Pokemon can use their GX attack even if you have used your GX attack. So this card, seemingly bad. Right? At first, you're like, not good. Why would I want to do any of that? 3 water, discard 5. Water Pokemon can use their GX attack. You're like, the best water deck in Standard is Nagquag. All right. But if we think about it, we head on over here. And we look up who has the most busted water GX attack in Standard format. If you guessed Articuno GX, you are correct. Ding, ding, ding. All right. You can use Cold Crush GX over and over and over and over again. Now, how fun does that sound? Right? You can just Cold Crush. Remove all the energy from play. All the time. If you're playing expanded format, right? You can discard eggs from your hand. You can go get Execute, right? Execute. Come on, spell it right. Yes. All right, there's the Execute from Plasma. Propagation, right? So you could keep bringing the egg back to your hand and discarding it as part of the, discard 5 thing. You also get to search out the water energy to go use your Cold Crush. So that's pretty good. Alternatively, you could also use, I like this idea, what someone said, Traino Y said you could Zero Vanish over and over again. Yes, also true. A lot of decks in expanded format are going to be hoarding energy into play, and you could use Palkia GX's Zero Vanish attack over and over. You could even do that in Standard format. Palkia GX is legal. I've started to see some Palkia GXs making their way into Nagquag decks, and you could Zero Vanish GX twice. Even getting to, Zero Vanish GX once is usually enough to win the game with Nagquag if you get it all set up. If you Zero Vanish GX a second time, you probably wrap that one up. So I think this card does have a lot of potential. It will get used with something. I think getting to reuse your GX attack on any water card is very good, and it does get more powerful in expanded format because the pool of water cards is bigger than we have in Standard format. Compared apples to apples, like we got, all right, what was the other, the other famous card was Zygarde GX, right? The most famous disappointment ever. Had Verdict GX, right? And you could reuse Verdict GX with Bonnie. This was famously not good. Right? What a letdown. Seemed busted. Bonnie, you can reuse, you know, your Verdict GX. Very not good. This is different, though, because you get to reuse the GX attack of any water Pokemon, which is wild. I mean, that's just, it's great. Much more versatile. So I think this card has potential. It's got an awesome looking full art, too. If you guys have seen the full art for that, for that card is amazing. Ends Resolve. Discard the top 6 cards of your deck. Attach all basic energy discarded in this way to one of your bench dragon Pokemon. Now, this is apparently how we're going to be accelerating energy onto our Reshirams. It's a little bit disruptive, right? You discard 6. That's a lot. You probably can't afford to play too many Ends Resolves in your deck, or you're going to deck yourself out. So, very chaotic. I do like Ends Resolve, potentially, in... I mean, weirdly, I kind of like it best with, like, Rayquaza GX. Rayquaza GX, this deck is already built to just discard itself. Constantly. So, Ends Resolve, yeah. You could use it to power up, you know, Reshiram, which is something we were talking about earlier. And you can use it to juice up that GX attack, making it so that you can do 170 damage to 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. But I think I like Ends Resolve best with Rayquaza GX. I mean, you're already building that deck to just discard itself, and then you can like juice some extra energy into play, which is cool. I'm not sure if it's necessarily going to be enough in either deck. It's just such a disruptive card. But I think it's cool. It's got potential. Could be a thing. I'm not sure how many decks we're going to see that have like 4 Ends Resolve in them. Yikes. But as a 1 of or 2 of in some decks, specifically the Dragon ones, could see it. Professor Oak's Setting. Search your deck for up to 3 basic Pokemon of different types, put them onto your bench. That's just a great card. Wow. They have to be different types. So the cool thing about it is that any deck that wants to search out basic Pokemon, you could get a Ditto and that basic Pokemon, right? So any Pokemon like setup deck is usually going to be able to get Ditto and like one of the other like setup Pokemon, and then like a third thing. And usually there is like a third thing that you want to get. If you think about Dark Box, right? If you Dark Box, you can go get a Ditto, a Sneasel, and a Poipole. Those 3 are 3 different types. And the cool thing is that you don't... Oh, you can also get Jirachis with it? That's cool. You could get Jirachi, Ditto, and something else. You could use it for Nagquag. You could go get yourself a Wooper. You could even get 2 different color Woopers. There's a Fighting Wooper, and there is a Water Wooper, and then you get yourself Poipole. Cool. There's now different color Sneasel. You could get a Water Sneasel, you get a Dark Sneasel, and you get a Ditto. I think that's pretty neat. Not as good in a deck like Malamar. I mean, Malamar, you could use it in Malamar. You could get Jirachi, Ditto, Inkay. So, not that bad. I think a lot of setup decks can find a way to use it by either getting Ditto, the basic, and Jirachi. That probably is pretty good. A Funston, good question. All right, so we're going to be getting pre-orders for this set up on fullgripgames.com this week. So if anybody is looking to pick up cards from Cosmic Eclipse, we're putting them up this week as soon as we get the secret rare cards confirmed from this set, because there is going to be a lot of secret rare cards in this set, which are really exciting, and can't wait to see what those are. As soon as we get the secret rare cards confirmed, the pre-orders for singles from Cosmic Eclipse will be on fullgripgames.com. So make sure to stay tuned for that. And thank you so much for supporting the shop. We're going to have codes for pre-order as well on Full Grip, and really excited about the Full Grip Codes website that we are working on as well, which is going to have instant PTCGO code delivery. That is almost completed as well. So a lot of really exciting stuff going on at Full Grip, and thank you guys so much for supporting the shop and helping us all out by shopping at Full Grip Games. You guys rock. Red and blue, search your deck for a Pokemon GX that evolves from one of your Pokemon in play and put it on that Pokemon to evolve it. Then shuffle your deck. When you play this card, you may discard 2 cards from your hand. If you do, search your deck for 2 basic energy and attach them to the Pokemon you evolved. Brady was telling me he loves this card for Dark Box. Oh, yeah. Dark Box, right? You get to go get your Weavile, and you get to put 2 dark energy onto it. Busted. It's not bad, but I'm worried that... you know, it's definitely one of those cards where it's like your board already has to be set up. Glaceon Gx, wow, you're right. You can use this to charge up your Glaceon Gx. Right? Search your deck for a Pokemon GX that evolves from one of your Pokemon in play. Put it on that Pokemon. You can't use this card during your first turn. Man, so your Eevee's got to be in play for a turn. Unfortunate. But you can juice up your Glaceon Gx, who we talked about earlier. Right. So I think the card has potential, but you do have to kind of have your board set up first, right? So I'd be worried that, yo, Vapor Panda, if I order a Weavile, will you and Natalie sign it? Absolutely, Vapor Panda, but put in the order details from Full Grip Games. Say, I want this card signed by Andrew and Natalie. So yes, if you put it in the order details, we'll definitely take care of it. But that way, DJ and Brandon, who are our shipping guys, will see it, and they'll make sure it happens before that order goes out. Thanks so much for the Twitch Prime sub, Vapor. All right, we got Roller Skater. Discard a card from your hand, then draw 2 cards. If you discard an energy card, draw 2 more cards. Draw 4. That's not bad. You have to discard an energy to draw 4. Not horrible. I mean, Coach Trainer is being played in some decks, you know, with tag teams, and Coach Trainer is just to draw 4. So draw 4 is powerful. But having to discard the energy to get the draw 4 effect is a little bit, I think, a little bit underwhelming. Rosa, search your deck for a Pokemon, a trainer, and a basic energy. Reveal them and put them into your hand. Then shuffle your deck. Pokemon, trainer, basic energy. That's not that bad. Yeah. That's not that bad. I think that this card is kind of good. Pokemon, trainer, basic energy. This is kind of like, how is this not just a better Volkner? Wait, oh, if only Pokemon was knocked out. I was like, this card's insane. Oh my gosh. All right, you can only, all right, it's less good. It's less good. All right, I was about to say, like, this card, holy smokes, it's just better than Volkner. But it's less good now. Your Pokemon has to be knocked out. I didn't read that first part. Classic don't read syndrome. But still not bad. It's kind of like Teammates, except Teammates could get any 2 cards instead. Rosa gets 3 cards, but one of them has to be a Pokemon, one has to be a trainer, one has to be a basic energy. So, not bad, but also really held back by the knocked out clause. And I'm worried about devoting spots to trainers or supporters that have a knocked out clause, because in this format, there's tag teams, so a lot of times your opponent's only going to knock out 2 or 3 Pokemon, which means that you only have like 2 or 3 opportunities to use this card throughout the course of the game. So I think that it's not quite as good. It's really bad in tag team decks, but it would be better in non-GX decks. Like Malamar could potentially use it, but to be honest, Malamar just wants to be playing supporter cards that all get them cards on the first turn of the game because it has such a hard time setting up anyway. Roxy, discard up to 2 Pokemon cards from your hand, excluding Pokemon GX or EX. For each card you discarded, draw 3 cards from your deck. That's pretty good. Brady was telling me this card's going to be busted in expanded format because you can just pair it with Execute, right? And just draw 6. Because you just use Propagate Egg and you just go draw 6, you know, no matter how big your hand already is. I think that's like pretty good in expanded. In standard, you have to discard 2 Pokemon, right? Excluding Pokemon GX or EX. So a little bit more limited in standard. I don't think it's going to be nearly as good. I think cards like Naganadel GX with Ultra Conversion are just better than devoting a supporter card that is based on discarding Pokemon. You know, maybe it could be seen in like expanded Vespiquen decks, but I don't think that's, you know, I think there are easier ways to make sure that you discard your Pokemon in expanded than using Roxy. Tag Whistle. Search your deck for up to 2 tag team cards, put them into your hand. Wow, this card is absolutely insane. So now you're telling me that every deck gets Electromagnetic Radar. Fantastic. Basically, every deck gets to play a Radar now that this thing is in print. 2 tag team cards. No, not Radar. You can't get to Denny. Never mind. But 2 tag teams is still pretty nuts. Okay. Now Radar is still better for lightning types because you get the Dedenne, which is sick, right? But this card can't get to Denny. It can only get tag teams. So you can go get 2 Mewtwo with it, which is pretty neat. You can go get 2 Reshirams with it. And you can get the tag team supporter cards, which is really cool. I love that aspect of the card. I think this is just a great card, getting to search out your consistency cards. I think it's really cool for cards like Red and Blue, who, you know, maybe a situational. I see it, Reggie Rocks. I see it now. I think it's really cool for situational tag team supporters like this one. And they're all pretty situational, like Mallow and Lana, right? You could go get those guys, and you could get a tag team Pokemon. You could search for just 2 tag team supporters, which is really neat as well. So I really do like Tag Whistle as a card, getting to search out a Pokemon and a supporter as an item card. That's really, really, really good. And I think this card is going to see play in a ton of decks for that reason. So excellent, versatile card, getting to be a consistency card as well as, I mean, it's a consistency card on multiple levels, getting to help you get your Pokemon out into play and helping to get your supporter out of your deck. Fantastic card, very powerful. Willy Will. After playing this card for the first time, you may flip a coin for the effect of a trainer card, an ability, or an attack during this turn. You may choose to make the result heads or tails. Interesting. That I would fail if I was playing this card. I would probably fail much less Stadium Navs, which I failed all the time at Knoxville. It was insane. The card that made me the most angry out of the entire deck. So if you don't like coin flips, you can use Will to make your coin flips guaranteed a flip of heads, which is kind of cool. And then there's Draw Energy. When you attach this card from your hand to a Pokemon, you may draw a card. That's awesome. I mean, this is just very cool as well. Colorless Energy helps you draw cards. Great. So, very, very cool. We're still waiting on all the secret rares and what their deal, what their deal is with these guys. The full art, full art cards that we're getting. We got the Weavile and Cyrus, the Piplup and and whoever that is. Man, how did I forget again? Okay, well, oops. Fake Pokemon fan. My bad, guys. So, anyways, that's it for my set review of Cosmic Eclipse. There's actually a lot more to dig into with this set. I mean, I've talked about some of these other GX Pokemon at length in other streams, but I think that about does it for my competitive review of Cosmic Eclipse. I think there is a lot to unpack in this set, and I think the set will be very good. Blacephalon, I mean, goodness, that card is just absolutely nuts. I think there's a lot of great cards in this set. Will definitely be hyped. Like I said, pre-orders for Cosmic Eclipse are going to be going up on FullGripGames.com this week. So make sure to stay tuned to my streams, my Twitter. I'm going to be announcing when pre-orders go up on FullGripGames.com. Thank you guys all so much for supporting the shop. And thank you guys for bearing with me during that long review. I am going to get to some PTCGO gameplay, and we will be right back with some PTCGO action after this short break. Thank you guys for being here. We'll be right back.